This story is set in the year 2354 in the space colony 357. George? Fred? Lily, I cried out to my team, but none answered, truly leaving me separated. Lights flashed on, blinding me for a moment. It looked as if I was standing within a circus tent, a lifted stage right in the center of it, with curtains separating it from the backstage. With a puff of smoke, an automaton dressed in a red tailcoat adorned with gold and a matching top hat appeared on the stage, a wicked sharp grin impressed into her tin skull. Her beady ocular lenses met with my eyes, her toothy grin opening slightly, as if pleased to see me. "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen," the automaton swung her staff wide, as if to greet a crowd. I could hear an applause around me, as if I was surrounded by an audience. I looked around myself to see disembodied hands clapping for the automaton. "We have a special show for you all tonight," the automaton continued. "We will be able to see a Genesis serpent hunt." The crowd turned to me, their faces only becoming visible as they faced me, their toothless grin reminding me of the comedy mask. Chains seemingly appeared from thin air in the automaton's hands, growing longer and longer, until reaching upwards to a collar. Within the collar grew a giant snake, but it didn't look exactly like a snake I was familiar with. Why did it have to be a snake? I've always had bad luck with snakes. It looked close enough to call it a snake, but it was half as thick as I was tall, and its eyes. The number fluctuated as they bubbled on the snake's head like boils creeping on the skin. Its mouth was full of dagger-sharp teeth, with rows of teeth behind the front row moving further into its mouth, shrinking as they reached further back, waves of teeth flowing and disappearing into the pit of its throat. The worst part of its mouth was its tongue, which wouldn't stop changing shape, sometimes looking like a regular snake's tongue, but it sometimes morphed, swelled, and changed into other tongues, sometimes a human tongue. It had legs, but they were randomly placed on the body, some even disappearing and others appearing all over its body. "Run," the crowd chanted in a harsh whisper. "Run, run." I slowly turned my body, keeping my eyes on the snake. I eventually broke my gaze and committed on just running out of the tent into metal halls lined with pipes and valves. When I looked back, I saw the serpent burst out of the tent's entrance. It looked as if it was flying, slithering through the air, with the occasional leg appearing on its body to grab a piece of terrain around it, propelling itself forward. I found a thin maintenance hall that would be able to barely fit me. I ran through it, looking back. The serpent stopped right outside the alley, glaring at me, hissing in multiple tongues, before slithering away. I continued through the alley, exiting out into a large garden. I pushed through thick and unkept hedges, finding a stone path I could walk comfortably through. I wandered through the starlit garden, looking up to see the stars of space. Some lights flickered from the garden lamps, but they were so derelict that they could barely light the path. At the end of the path was a small temple that was rarely ever seen on Earth, let alone Mars. I entered it, closing the doors behind me. Taking out my pager, its faint light illuminated the temple's interior. I tried contacting my team, the pager quietly buzzing as it called out. A heavy slithering could be heard outside the temple walls. Sweat poured off my face as I hid within the small sanctuary. For the first time in my life, I prayed. I prayed to whatever God lived within this temple territory, praying that whatever demon was outside would leave. After I opened my eyes, the slithering stopped. I sighed deeply, finally feeling safe for a moment before the pager rang, shining light on the serpent's face. It felt like an eternity as I stared in shock at the bubbling mass of eyes on the serpent's skull. Once my brain caught up with my situation, my legs scampered to escape, my hands pushing open the doors to the place I once thought of as safe. I ran once again. Thinking was all taken over by instinct by my fear. Upon leaving the garden into a much brighter lit hall, I pressed the red button, instinctively knowing that it was an emergency seal switch. The giant airlock door slid quickly shut, sealing the serpent inside the garden. But my luck failed me once again as the snake slithered through the airlock, as if the thick steel door was merely air. I could swear the snake was, grinning at me as if it was the chase. "You can keep running, little human," the serpent spoke with human tongue, "but there is nowhere you can go that I cannot reach you." I turned and ran, fear overwhelming my senses now, my focus narrowed to a single point. Fear is wasted on the likes of you. Why run when there is no hope? You are already dead. I fell into a hole. No, a mouth, the serpent's mouth, as if the floor opened up to swallow me whole. Memories flashed before my eyes, but it wasn't like my entire life passing me by. Instead, there were moments my mind focused on. I remembered the time a snake bit me when I was a toddler, the time a snake almost crushed my arm at the age of 10, the snake that killed my sister when I was 20, the snake that almost cost me my employment. I could remember every time a snake had caused me trouble and saw that smile spread across its face. Maybe it was right. Maybe there was no hope. Maybe this was fate.